We then went undergo a course of chemotherapy for 6 months, beginning of last year to around about this time last year. At the end of that, I took the year off medical school. At the end of that, we went and we travelled for 2 months around Southeast Asia just to have a break. Got back, had a repeat scan in October of last year. The scan showed pretty much the worst thing it could show. The cancer was back. And it was back in some nodes. It's not operable. It meant that chemotherapy had to start again, which it did in December. And when I spoke to the oncologist and said to him, well, so what does this do for my 5-year survival? He said to me, well, we don't talk in 5-year survivals anymore. We talk in 2-year survivals. I'd gone from having a 40% 5-year survival to basically a terminal form of cancer. And it's anyone's guess as to when it will take me out. I've been living with it now for 18 months. I'm already starting to beat the odds. If I'm alive in a year's time, that will be amazing. If I'm alive in 2 years' time, that'll be close to a miracle. I decided, because of God's calling for me in medical school, that I wasn't going to let cancer stop me from going back. So I went back to med school this year, started in January. I take 3 days of every working week out for chemotherapy. I've just finished round 14, round 15 is next weekend. And for me, it is absolutely imperative that I can rest in the fact that God knows my journey. Because when you have a journey like that, if you don't know that God understands it, then how are you supposed to deal with it? How are you supposed to live with that? There is an incredible peace achieved in just knowing the fact that, if nothing else, God knows our journey. And all of our journeys are different. But He knows it. Verse 5, you hem me in, behind and before, you have laid your hand upon me. This is point number 3. God watches and protects us. When I had my bowel obstruction, I had it 1 week after my final 5th year exams, which are like the biggest exams of medical school. I had it 1 week before we were flying out to Nepal. Now, had it happened earlier, I would have lost my entire year's worth of work and would have had to repeat 5th year. Had it happened later, I would have been in Nepal. I probably would have perforated my bowel, got septic and died. It's a very real possibility. Even in the midst of all of this, I can see God at work. God protects us and He looks after us. Sometimes we just have to choose to see it, though. Sometimes we have to choose to see it. Verses 6 to 12. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light becomes night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. And the night will shine like the day, for the darkness is as light to you. This is point number 4 that I'd like you to write down. God refuses to abandon us. Even in our darkest places, God still sees us. Even when we think we're hiding from God, He still sees us. Even when we feel distant, even when we feel like we do not know Him, God refuses to abandon us. And this is doubly important for me. You know, one of the darkest places that I've had to journey with this is the fact that this diagnosis came in 11 months into our marriage. I was 27. I got discharged from hospital on my 28th birthday. Nobody really expects when they give their in sickness and health vows for it to kick in quite so soon. But sometimes it does. Sometimes it does. And one of the hardest things that I've had to deal with through all of this, one of the hardest things is not the fact that what I'm going through, is what I'm putting my wife through. As a husband, You want to protect your wife. You want to look after her. I married her to be with her till we were 80, not until 30. I don't want to make her a widow. We had plans, family. We wanted to go into the developing world and serve God. And it rips me apart, absolutely tears me apart that I see what I'm doing to her. It is the hardest thing for me to do. I don't care that I'm going through it. I care that my wife has to sit on the other side and watch it. At the end of the day, when I die, I don't have to live with my own death. She does. So does my family. So does my friends. And that is one of the hardest things that I find. And the only way that I have discovered that I'm able to deal with this, to cope with this, is to submit it to God on a daily basis. This isn't a one-off submission I'm talking about. This is actively submitting all the time. Every moment I have thoughts this way, I have to give it to God. And it is through that submission to God that I discover that God doesn't abandon us, that I find peace. And as hard as it is, there is peace. Verses 13, for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you. When I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. This is point 5. God has a purpose for us. God made us. He has a purpose for us. But this is the thing. We actually have to choose to engage in God's purpose for us for it to become purposeful. It's all very well saying that God has a purpose for each and every one of you here, and He does. But unless you choose to engage in that, unless you choose to engage God in the journey that you are in through this life, that purpose is meaningless. You will never get to see it come to fruition in your life. One of the things I've quickly discovered is that it's very instinctive when people go through situations like this to go, why God, why? Why is this happening to me? We ask it all the time, but it's actually the worst question you could possibly ask. Because the answer to the why question is almost inevitably never going to actually bring you the answer that you're looking for. The answer to the why question in my situation is that I've subsequently been diagnosed with something called hyperplastic polyposis syndrome. Hyperplastic polyps occur commonly, and they're completely benign in a lot of people's colons. Many of you will have them right now. Think about that. But when they occur in high frequency, it's a newly described syndrome that essentially is a pre-malignant condition. It seems to be that in high frequency, you have a higher preponderance for developing cancer. Now, if I was to ask why, God, why, and that's the answer that I got, and that is the answer that I got, I'm so much better off for knowing that. Can you tell? The reality is that it's a completely unfulfilling answer, and it almost always is an unfulfilling answer. It's the wrong question to be asking. Instead, what I've discovered is that by changing the question from why, I start asking the question how. How, God, can I take the place that you have put me in to honor you? How, God, can I build your kingdom with the journey that you have put me on? You have positioned me here, you have positioned me now in this place, this time. And in my case, with cancer, and I hate that. But how, God, can I honor you in the midst of all of this? If I'm going to get taken out by cancer in a couple of years' time, I'm not going to do it quietly. I'm going to do it building God's kingdom. I'm going to do it giving Him glory and honor. And the last thing I want to do is be selfish about it and dwell in my own misery. By asking the question how, we turn the focus to God, to other people, and away from ourselves. It's easy to feel sorry for yourself, but that achieves nothing but depression. Asking how makes it others-focused and God-focused, and I think that's what Christ has called us to be. And to be honest, by asking the how question, all of a sudden I've given purpose to what is otherwise a purposeless situation. This situation sucks, and I could easily be wallowing in my own self-misery, and there's no purpose in that, and this has given me purpose. I have chosen to engage with God where I have been placed in this time, and that has created purpose. God has a purpose for us. Psalm 48:14. For this is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide, even to death. And I choose to read that in such a way that it's not even until death, but even if it leads to death. The net result of all of this, I'm okay with the fact that I might be dead in a couple of years' time. I don't have to like it. I don't have to want it. I certainly don't want it. My wife and I pray for healing every single night. We believe in a healing God. But I've been around the hospital long enough to know that I can see people who are well. You want to discharge them the next day, and then something happens overnight, they crash and they die. Conversely, you see people who are on the brink of death, and for whatever reason they pull back and you're discharging them a week later from the hospital. Life can sometimes be arbitrary, but we have to choose how we engage with its arbitrariness. We have to choose our approach to it, because that is where we create the purpose that God has given us. I don't want to die. Nobody ever does. But I've arrived at a place where I'm okay with it.